Welcome to the Digital Intellect, bringing you the latest news from around the world. The headlines this morning were stark. Boeing halts U.S. production, factories shuttered, an American icon grounded. The news hit with the force of a thunderclap, reverberating across the nation and sending shockwaves through the global aerospace industry. For many, it felt like the end of an era. On June 21, 2025, the unthinkable happened. Boeing, a symbol of American ingenuity for over a century, announced an indefinite suspension of its commercial aircraft production in the United States. The company that once defined the skyline and spirit of American progress now faced an uncertain future. The assembly lines in Everett, Washington, and North Charleston, South Carolina, have gone silent. Once bustling with skilled workers and the constant rhythm of production, these massive facilities now stand eerily still, their silence a stark contrast to decades of innovation and achievement. The hum of machinery replaced by an unnerving quiet, echoing far beyond the factory gates. The stillness is not just physical, it's emotional. A heavy weight pressing down on communities that have relied on Boeing for generations. This isn't a drill or a minor dispute. It's a full-blown crisis, the kind that disrupts lives, rattles markets, and forces a nation to confront uncomfortable truths about its economic foundations. For generations, Boeing has been more than a company. It's been a cornerstone of American prosperity and innovation. Families have built their lives around Boeing paychecks, and entire towns have grown up in the shadow of its factories. Its planes have carried millions across continents and oceans, connecting the world. But today, that legacy is in jeopardy. The sense of pride and security that once came with the Boeing name has been replaced by anxiety and uncertainty. The decision, confirmed in a somber pre-market announcement, sent shockwaves through Wall Street and Washington. Investors watched in disbelief as Boeing's stock plummeted, while lawmakers scrambled to respond to the unfolding disaster. Workers, investors, and politicians are scrambling for answers. The uncertainty is palpable, with livelihoods, retirement savings, and political futures all hanging in the balance. The roots of this crisis run deep, woven through global politics, economic brinkmanship, and unintended consequences. Years of escalating trade tensions and policy missteps have finally come to a head, exposing vulnerabilities in even the mightiest of American industries. Trade policies meant to protect American jobs have, ironically, pushed one of our most important companies to the brink. The very measures designed to shield workers have backfired, leaving communities exposed to economic hardship. The immediate trigger? A powerful blow from halfway around the world, turning global trade into economic warfare. Tariffs, sanctions, and retaliatory measures have created a perfect storm, disrupting supply chains and choking off vital markets. The fallout will be immense. A chain reaction of economic pain. Layoffs will ripple through not just Boeing, but thousands of suppliers and small businesses that depend on its success. Entire communities face an uncertain future. We now stand at the edge of a major industrial event. The consequences will be felt far beyond the aerospace sector, touching every corner of the American economy. Boeing's grounding is a stark warning about the realities of a deeply interconnected global economy. When one link in the chain breaks, the effects can be catastrophic, rippling across borders and industries. How did this happen? Who's to blame? And what does it mean for the hundreds of thousands of American workers who depend on Boeing? These are questions that demand answers, not just for those directly affected, but for anyone who cares about the future of American industry. Over the next few moments, we'll unpack the layers of this crisis, from international trade disputes to the devastating impact on American communities. We'll explore the decisions, the missteps, and the global forces that brought us to this point. This is a story you need to understand, because what's happening to Boeing could happen to any company, in any industry, in a world where everything is connected and nothing is certain. The final blow didn't come from a rival manufacturer or a disruptive startup, but from a source no one at Boeing could have fully anticipated. It came from Boeing's largest and most lucrative customer, China, a nation whose appetite for air travel had fueled Boeing's growth for decades. In a swift and decisive act of economic retaliation, the Civil Aviation Administration of China issued a sweeping directive. All Chinese airlines were ordered to suspend, cancel, and refuse every Boeing aircraft and parts order, effective immediately. This wasn't a mere warning or a negotiating tactic. It was a bold declaration. The world's fastest-growing aviation market was now completely closed to Boeing, a move that many in the industry saw as a commercial death sentence for the American giant. This dramatic move was a direct response to the latest round of U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods. Beijing had repeatedly warned Washington of potential countermeasures, and now it had delivered. striking at Boeing, a symbol of American innovation and economic might. Why target Boeing? Because its high-value, high-visibility products make it a powerful pawn in this high-stakes geopolitical chess match. Every jetliner represents not just millions of dollars, but also thousands of American jobs and a century of aerospace dominance. By grounding Boeing, China sent a message that echoed far beyond the aviation industry. Trade wars have real, tangible consequences, and those consequences would be felt deep within the American economy. The impact was immediate and devastating. The order wiped out nearly a third of Boeing's order backlog overnight, erasing years of future business in a single stroke. Imagine waking up to find 30% of your future revenue gone in a single morning. That's the harsh new reality Boeing faced. The shockwaves rippled through Wall Street, with Boeing stock plummeting and investors scrambling to assess the damage. For years, the Chinese market had been the bedrock of Boeing's future plans, driving production, supporting thousands of jobs, and justifying billions in research and development. Now, that foundation was suddenly gone. With the loss of its biggest customer, Boeing's entire business structure became unstable. Keeping U.S. assembly lines running with no destination for the planes would quickly lead to mounting losses and financial disaster. The Chinese directive was precise and uncompromising, not just halting new orders, but suspending all payments and refusing to accept deliveries of completed aircraft. Even planes already built and ready for handover were now in limbo. Dozens of brand new jets, painted in the colors of Chinese airlines, were suddenly stranded on U.S. tarmacs. Each one represented millions in lost revenue and months of wasted labor. The financial bleeding was immediate and relentless. The sudden halt in cash flow, combined with the obliteration of its order book, left Boeing's leadership with no good options and mounting pressure from all sides. The shutdown of U.S. production was no longer just a distant possibility. It was now an inevitability. The world watched in disbelief as an American giant was brought to its knees by a single, calculated move from across the Pacific. The message was unmistakable. In a global economy, no company, no matter how large or powerful, is truly untouchable. The skies had shifted, and the world would never look at Boeing or global trade the same way again. China's order was the final blow, but it was only the tip of the iceberg for Boeing's troubles. The crisis had been brewing for years, fueled by a relentless trade war that escalated tensions and uncertainty across the globe. The core issue? U.S. tariffs, designed to shield American manufacturers from foreign competition, ended up backfiring on companies like Boeing, which operate on a global scale. Boeing sources thousands of components from around the world. Tariffs made essential materials, aluminum, steel, electronics, dramatically more expensive, impacting every stage of production. These weren't minor increases. They added millions to the cost of each aircraft, squeezing margins and forcing tough decisions on pricing and production. Boeing was caught in a vice, rising production costs at home and retaliatory tariffs abroad making its planes pricier for foreign buyers. The company was squeezed from both sides, with little room to maneuver. The result? A perfect storm, where every new policy seemed to add another layer of complexity and risk. Boeing had to absorb costs to stay competitive, squeezing profits, while international customers were discouraged from buying American. Rivals from Europe and Asia suddenly looked more attractive. The once efficient supply chain descended into chaos. Delays became routine, and uncertainty reigned as suppliers struggled to adapt. Boeing relies on over 12,000 suppliers, many of them small U.S. businesses who themselves depend on global parts. The ripple effects were enormous, touching every corner of the American manufacturing landscape. Tariffs created confusion, delays, and unpredictable price hikes throughout this web. Shipments stalled at borders, paperwork piled up, and costs soared. A small Ohio supplier might suddenly find a critical microchip from Asia is 25% more expensive, throwing budgets and schedules into disarray. For many, it was a daily scramble to keep production on track. This disruption rippled up to Boeing's main assembly lines, causing bottlenecks, missed deadlines, and growing uncertainty about the future. Trade policies failed to account for the reality of modern manufacturing, where supply chains stretch across continents and every part is interconnected. You can't wall off a nation's economy and expect a globally integrated company like Boeing to thrive. The world is simply too connected, and isolation comes at a steep price. The tariffs didn't create new domestic suppliers, they just made the global system more expensive and less reliable, pushing some small businesses to the brink. Rising costs and instability weakened Boeing from within, leaving it vulnerable to external shocks and unable to compete on a level playing field. The trade war didn't protect Boeing, it eroded its foundations, leaving an American giant grounded and uncertain about its future. With its U.S. operations halted and China closed, Boeing's leadership made a drastic decision. The company isn't abandoning production, it's shifting its future overseas. Boeing will accelerate investment in international operations and forge new partnerships in countries with stable trade relationships. The first major move, a massive expansion in Canada, pouring billions into facilities that already produce key components. This includes new R&D centers focused on sustainable aviation fuels and next-gen fuselage design. Why Canada? Its trade agreements provide tariff-free access to North America and the Pacific, bypassing the tariff wars crippling U.S. operations. Boeing is also looking to Europe, establishing a logistics hub in Germany to access the EU's single market. In Asia, Boeing is doubling its composite materials plant in Malaysia, leveraging lower costs and access to the ASEAN trade bloc. This global pivot is a tragic irony. An American champion of domestic manufacturing now forced to invest and create high-tech jobs overseas. The very policies meant to put America first are driving capital and innovation abroad. Boeing isn't leaving out of disloyalty, it's a matter of survival. The U.S. trade environment has become too volatile, unpredictable, and costly. To save itself, Boeing must diversify away from the instability of its own home country. The future of American aerospace is now being built on foreign soil. The lesson is clear. In a global economy, isolation comes at a steep price.